So you probably know by now that age verification on electronic devices is one of the latest trends in government tyranny. And when I was reading through California and Colorado's laws that would require age verification for installing an operating system, part of me thought that that would be the end game to this kind of legislation because, checking ages at the OS level covers basically everybody. But recently, I read about a pending federal law called the App Store Accountability Act, which in a nutshell would require the people that run app stores or really any system that distributes software to perform age verification and sort users into different age categories like adult, which would be someone who is 18 or older, teenager, which would be someone between the ages of 16 and 18, child, which is someone between 13 and 16, and young child, which is anyone below the age of 13 years old. Now, the law currently doesn't require photo ID scans or the user to submit their specific birthday, but obviously the birth date could be deduced from an end user simply changing their age brackets on a specific day, which is a huge privacy concern. Now, before diving into the details of this particular bill, let's think about what this layered approach of age checks would actually look like to the average computer user if the powers that be get their way. So you've got age attestation at the OS level. Before you even finish setting up a new computer, Windows, Ubuntu, or whatever OS you're running is going to ask you how old you are. And for now, these laws are pretty much just relying on people's honesty. So it's kind of like how cigarette vendors were back in the 1940s up until maybe the 1980s. It was technically illegal to sell tobacco to anyone under 18, but most of the old heads will tell you that when they were kids, their parents would send them to the corner store to pick up cigarettes, beer, lottery tickets, and all those different things that you have to be an adult to buy. But now, everyone has to get their ID checked, at least until the owner knows that you're over 18, or you at least look like you're over the age of 65. And I firmly believe that if these laws stay in place, they're not just going to stay on the honor system, because the true purpose of these laws is broadening mass surveillance, and their stated purpose of these laws is protecting the heckin' children. They're both more effectively accomplished if the age verification systems include face scans and ID uploads. So when we get to the point that you have to show your ID just to install an operating system, and you have to show your ID to download software, and then in the case of social media and chat apps, you have to show ID to install those, people will literally be going through more verification steps than what's required to board a plane in an American airport. When you go to the airport, you really only have to show your ID, I think, twice to get on a plane here, and even fewer times if you have that clear pass or whatever they call it when they do that deep dive to make sure that your friend's cousin's ex-boyfriend wasn't a terrorist. And like I said in the last video about Colorado and California's age attestation laws, the only real way to fight against this is going to be free software, and specifically the DIY approach to free software. Now, there's been a lot of buzz in the Linux world about how distros would actually go about complying with the age verification law. I believe Ubuntu was first to drop some ideas about it in their mailing list. Then on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen people in the Debian mailing list saying that they want to avoid implementing the age checks at all cost. In fact, the developer of Adenosine OS, a fork of Debian, actually said that they would rather region block or at least declare their OS as not for use in states that have these laws on the books. Now, rolling your own Linux distro is relatively easy compared to rolling your own package manager and software distribution system. For example, if you were to install Gentoo and compile the packages with your own compiler options, you're effectively creating your own unique Linux distro. But I know from experience that it actually takes longer to compile Firefox or Chromium from source than the entire Linux kernel, base system, Xorg, and even a minimalist desktop environment like XFCE. In addition to the CPU overhead of compiling all those packages, you also need to download the source code of all the packages you want want to use and store the binaries on your own dedicated server in order to really roll your own software distribution system. And you also need a package manager, although I guess if you're compiling everything from source, you might as well just use Portage since it's already designed to do that anyway. You could just go ahead and fork it if the bill ends up forcing an age check flag in the source code of that program. So getting back to the bill's text, it says that at the time an individual creates an account with the covered App Store provider, they should request age information from the individual and verify the individual's age category using a commercially available method or process that is reasonably designed to ensure accuracy. If the age verification method or process determines that the individual is a minor, it would require the account to be affiliated with a parental account and obtain verifiable parental consent from the holder of the affiliated parental account before allowing the minor to download or purchase an app to make an in-app purchase. Now, going back to the top of the bill, App Store is defined as a publicly available website or software application or other electronic service that distributes and facilitates the download onto a mobile device of an app from a third-party developer by a user of a computer, mobile device, or any other general-purpose computing device. And covered App Store provider, which is what the bill seems to really apply to, means any person that owns or controls an app store that is available in the United States and for which users in the United States exceeds 5 million. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but I think the requirement of 5 million users might actually keep most distros out of the spotlight. For example, CatchyOS in their end of 2025 blog post stated that they're up to 847,000 downloads. And I don't think any distro outside of Ubuntu or maybe Arch Linux has anywhere near 5 million users. And that's only if you count the server users, which is the real Ubuntu market share, and of course Steam Deck users for Arch Linux. But again, since we're talking about app stores, the Linux equivalent would be apt, Pacman, FlatHub, and the AUR, which spans across multiple distros, and might have enough users to fall under the scrutiny of this law. There's also the deeper question of how exactly would this be implemented, because the process of creating a user account is handled in the setup process of most JustWorks distro, which is handled in the back end by core utils like UserAdd and UserMod, and it's completely separate from the quote-unquote app stores. So from where I'm sitting, it kind of looks like the distro maintainers and the app store maintainers would have to work together to integrate this age check solution, and all the while the software remains free and open source, non-compliance should be a very easy thing for the tinkerers, the people who really understand how Linux works, to just bypass. Now, I guess the silver lining to this tyranny is that it's mostly coming from boomers that don't have any clue about how Linux works, and as a result, they'll be unsuccessful in creating any laws that would effectively neuter Linux. And I think the worst case scenario is that we'll have to start serving distros and packages via I2P. I might have to create an Unstoppable Linux tutorial, but for now, if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it to hack the algorithm, and check out my online store, based.win, where you can buy my awesome merch or accessories for your phone or laptop. 10% store-wide discount when you pay with Monero XMR at checkout. Have a great rest of your day.